All right, imagine stepping back in time, not just a few years, but centuries into the heart of ancient Mexico. Long before any European ship touched these shores, a magnificent civilization thrived here. This was the domain of the Aztecs, a powerful alliance of city-states that forged one of the most formidable empires in the Americas. We know them for their towering pyramids, intricate art, and spectacular feathered headdresses. But the foundation of this empire, the very lifeblood that pulsed through its veins, wasn't just trade or farming, it was built on war, a unique and brutal form of warfare that would be almost unrecognizable today. So how did these wars actually work? First, forget everything you've seen in Hollywood movies about chaotic, savage battles. Aztec warfare was a deeply religious and highly ritualized affair. It was a cosmic duty. For them, war was essential to keep the universe in balance. It was governed by a strict code of conduct, a calendar of auspicious days for battle, and a profound sense of honor. But don't mistake ritual for weakness. This structured approach to conflict was paired with a level of brutality that is genuinely jaw-dropping. It was a world where divine purpose and visceral violence walked hand in hand. It usually began with diplomacy, but with a sharp edge. When the Aztecs targeted a new city-state for conquest, they wouldn't just invade. First, they'd send ambassadors. These envoys would arrive with gifts and a clear ultimatum: accept the supremacy of the Aztec emperor, agree to pay tribute, and worship the Aztec god Huitzilopochtli. They would typically give the city 20 days to consider the offer. If the city refused, a second embassy would arrive, this time with warnings and symbolic gifts of war, like shields and clubs. If they refused again, it was a formal declaration of war. It was game on. And the Aztec war machine was a sight to behold. We're talking massive armies, sometimes numbering over 100,000 warriors, drawn from across the empire. Every able-bodied man was a potential soldier, trained from his youth in military schools called Telpochcali. The most skilled and bravest fighters could rise through the ranks to join elite warrior societies, like the fearsome Jaguar and Eagle warriors. These weren't just costumes. Their spectacular animal-themed regalia, made of feathers and animal pelts, signified their rank and battlefield prowess. Their weaponry was brutal and effective. The most iconic was the macuahuitl, a wooden club edged with razor-sharp obsidian blades, capable of decapitating a man or a horse. They used the atlatl, a spear thrower that could launch darts with enough force to pierce Spanish armor. And for defense, they wore ichkawipili, armor made of densely packed cotton soaked in salt water, which was surprisingly resistant to arrows and even Spanish swords. But here's the biggest twist, the fundamental difference from European warfare. The primary goal on the battlefield wasn't always to kill, it was to capture. A warrior's prestige and social standing were measured not by his kill count, but by the number of live captives he brought back from battle. Taking your first captive was a rite of passage. Taking 4 or 5 could elevate a commoner to the nobility. But why was capture so important? Because these captives were destined for sacrifice. According to Aztec belief, their primary god, Huitzilopochtli, the god of the sun and war, needed a constant supply of human hearts and blood to have the strength to rise each morning and battle the forces of darkness. War was the sacred duty of providing this divine nourishment. This need for captives led to one of the most fascinating and bizarre forms of conflict in history, the Flower Wars, or these were prearranged battles fought against specific, long-standing enemies like the powerful Tlaxcalans. The goal wasn't conquest or territory. Instead, 2 armies would agree to meet on a designated battlefield, specifically to fight and capture warriors for sacrifice. It was a way to keep the gods satisfied during times of peace, and it served as a brutal live-fire training exercise for their most elite soldiers. It's wild, right? For the victors, success in a war of conquest meant more than just glory and sacrificial victims. It meant wealth. Conquered cities were forced to pay enormous amounts of tribute. Gold, textiles, exotic feathers, food, and raw materials, all flowing back to the capital, Tenochtitlan, making it one of the richest cities in the world. But this system of domination bred deep resentment. The Aztecs ruled through fear, not loyalty. Decades of brutal warfare, heavy tribute demands, and the constant threat of being sacrificed created a landscape of simmering hatred. So when a small band of Spanish conquistadors, led by Hernan Cortés, arrived in 1519, they didn't find a unified empire. Instead, they found a powder keg. Enemies like the Tlaxcalans saw the Spanish not as invaders, but as powerful allies in their long struggle against the Aztecs. They eagerly joined forces, providing the Spanish with tens of thousands of warriors, crucial intelligence, and logistical support. In the end, the very system of ritualized warfare, tribute, and sacrifice that built the Aztec Empire also sowed the seeds of its destruction. The same ferocity that made them masters of Mexico made them countless enemies. It was a world of strategy, spectacle, and blood, which is how an empire rose and ultimately fell in the Valley of Mexico. Like for more epic history in minutes,